Hey, Facebook Live, Senator Holly Mitchell. Thrilled that you are joining us for today's Teletown Hall on COVID-19. We're going to be both Facebook Living, Teletown Halling. I'm using all the technology at my disposal today. We're about to go live very shortly. We'll be joined by Assemblymember Sydney Kamlager. Thank you all for joining in and participating. We appreciate it. Give us a few minutes for the telephone town hall aspect of this live experience to catch up. We'll be right with you. Stay tuned. Uh, that would be great, just like that. And we can get started when you are. Okay, you don't show Assemblywoman Kamlager Dove? Okay. Yeah, she was supposed to have the co-host line also. If we get started and she dials in, will she be able to get in if we get started? Okay. I think since we've got people waiting, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this evening's town hall on COVID-19. We're doing Facebook Live for those who didn't make the cutoff to participate on the Teletown Hall. We have several hundred people on the phone on the Teletown Hall, so we really appreciate you all for calling in. I see people are sending me messages on Facebook Live, and I'm got to tell you, I'm not going to be able to do both of these. You know, I'm old, but we're trying to use technology to connect with everyone, to have this important conversation about this issue that's impacting our lives, our workplace, our families, our community. So thank you all for joining in. This call gives me the opportunity to connect with you, provide information, and answer questions. I want you to know that my office and Assemblymember Kamlager Dove's office is open, and we're here to support you through this unprecedented time with resources like our COVID-19 landing page on my own website, and we'll get you the website a little later. Is the Assemblymember, have you joined us? I think she may be having some challenges accessing the phone line, so as soon as she comes on, we'll have her welcome you all and give an opening as well. First of all, I want to start by just acknowledging what we hope to gain by today's Teletown Hall. We wanted to talk as your state level legislators about the resources and the work we're doing at the state level. I know we're all being inundated with information from the federal, the state, the county, local, with our governor and our mayor doing press conferences and our president almost daily. And so we really wanted to talk to you about the resources that are available at the state level and hear from you in terms of questions you have that hopefully we're in a position to offer. So I say all that to say we're not going to go too deeply into the what, the cause, the how many, the testing. We're really going to talk about what we're going to do at the state level to bring resources to your attention. Assemblymember Kamlager, have you joined us? No. Okay, I'm going to continue to go on, and when she joins us, I hope that she'll just jump in. I thought I saw a text saying that she was on the line. So again, our job as the state of California during times of crisis is to intervene and provide support where we can to make sure that everyone has access to the resources they need to really survive this pandemic. When the legislature adjourned, we recessed a week ago this past March. Before we did that, we took two very significant, important budget actions that I want to touch bases on briefly to make sure you know about. We introduced two bills, Senate Bill 117 and 87, and basically it created the opportunity for the governor to tap into $1 billion to meet the needs of California residents. You know, since the whole thing started for us early March, since his first executive order, he has issued 11 executive orders. And the point of the executive orders is to help California handle this crisis and flatten the curve or limit the spread of COVID-19. He's created a website that's an amazing resource, covid19.ca.gov. It was created by his office to get Californians up-to-date information, and it literally is updated multiple times a day. Again, that's covid19.ca.gov. My role again as budget chair has shifted a bit during this time as we look at the major emergency actions that we have to respond to COVID-19. The bills I've talked to you about have created state resources to help us here in our home district of the 30th Senate District and the 54th Assembly District. We've directed approximately $41 million to the LA County region to focus specifically on resources for the unhoused. The governor has purchased additional FEMA trailers, additional motel and hotel vouchers have been identified. We allocated resources in those two budget bills to enter into long-term leases with two hospitals, one in Northern California in Daly City, and one right there in Los Angeles in downtown St. Vincent's. We allocated resources in the education bill, SB 117, to make sure that our school districts have the resources they need through average daily assistance, ADA, even though the schools are shut down, to continue to pay teachers and continue to function as schools. We also allocated in that bill resources for child care facilities to have extra resources for cleaning and sanitation. Over the last 2 weeks, we've had a significant increase in calls to our offices, primarily our district offices, requesting information about unemployment insurance, business assistance, and housing help. And we have resources, again, on my website. But let me briefly walk through some of the issues that we've heard most about from our constituents. Employment Development Department, EDD. If you recently lost your job because of COVID-19, one of the governor's executive orders waives the 1 week unpaid waiting period, so you can collect benefits for the first week you're out of work. If you're eligible, the EDD processes and issues payments within a few weeks of receiving a claim. They have more resources on their website. The EDD website is edd.ca.gov. Again, what's most significant is you won't have that wait period, and they're working very hard to process all the applications as quickly as they can. My staff was on a teletown hall that EDD held recently and heard that and for the month of March only, and the month isn't over yet, they've already received 1 million claims. I hope you all saw in the press the last couple of days the actions that the federal government has taken, the vote taken by the U.S. Senate through their historic bailout, if you will, of the country. There will be some additional resources available to EDD per applicant. And so once that bill becomes law, we'll be able to roll those additional dollars out through those of you who are applying for unemployment insurance. Small businesses and nonprofit organizations and churches, we have heard from the nonprofit sector and businesses and churches in our district who are deeply, deeply concerned about how you're going to be able to continue to provide important social services, how you're going to be able to keep the lights on and the doors open as a result of the mandatory closure. So small businesses and nonprofits, if you're a nonprofit or small business and you're having a tough time, the Small Business Association is offering targeted low-interest loans to small businesses and nonprofits that have been severely impacted by COVID-19. That application, again, can be found on the SBA website at sba.gov. Housing and homelessness. This is an overwhelming issue, quite frankly, when you recognize the rate of unhoused and housing affordability in LA County, in my district, on a good day. To now amplify it with this pandemic is really, really frightening, to be perfectly honest with you. And we're working collaboratively with every level of government to make sure that we can get people the resources they need to be housed and to be safe. So, for example, St. Joseph's and HOPICS, the Homeless Outreach Program Integrated Care System, are working diligently to get people into housing. If you need a voucher, contact them. Also, SHARE, Collaborative Housing, has vacancies and taking in referrals right now, placing people within 2 days. The city and county are also working toward opening more rec centers for sheltering people experiencing homelessness and sheltering them for up to 8 weeks. The Healthy Housing Foundation is also currently accepting applications for housing. LAHSA, the Los Angeles Housing Services Agency, has all of the up-to-date information on hygiene stations, food resources, etc. on their website. The LAHSA website is www.lahsa.org. Again, that's lahsa.org. We've heard from so many service providing organizations, from domestic violence shelters to child care facilities, as I said earlier, to the churches. Everyone is really trying to figure out how we exist kind of in this new normal. I was really pleased to see today on Facebook, actually, one of our progressive young leaders in Los Angeles, Jeffrey Wallace, who's the leader of Leaders Up. And he posted a white paper that really is communicating the commitment of his organization in this time of this public health pandemic. And he made a statement that I thought was so powerful that really reflects my commitment and Assemblymember Kamlager's commitment to the work we do every day. And he said, when the world is in panic mode, the people who have the least are often left without being involved in the discussion of how to solve it. And so that's why we're doing the Teletown Hall. That's why my staff is working remotely every day, answering the phones, answering your emails, trying to get you, our constituents, the information you need to navigate your families and your communities through these very difficult times, because it's my commitment to you that you won't be left behind. We want to thank the folks who RSVP'd and sent in a number of questions that we want to talk to you about. We want to attempt to answer. We got more questions that we'll have time to answer, but I'm going to go through about 7 or 8, however many we have time for. And we're also going to make sure that my staff responds to you in writing. So thank you for your questions. In the next day or two, you should get an email from a member of Team Mitchell or a member of Team Kamlager responding to those of you who submitted questions electronically. Assemblymember Kamlager, have you joined us yet? Great. Assemblymember Kamlager, I'm sorry you had difficulty getting on. Why don't you go ahead and give your intro statement? And I've already talked about some of the state resources that have been made available through EDD and others. So why don't you go ahead, and thank you for joining me today. Assemblymember? Okay, we can't hear her. There we go. There we go. That's right.
Zero. My staff are also working remotely. They are not in the office, but they are available Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, as they would be without this public crisis in effect, making sure that we can service you. I want to reiterate the importance of remaining safe and remaining healthy, to self-isolate, to practice social distancing, to wash your hands, to not touch your face, as I just did. I think at the beginning people were not taking this pandemic seriously, but we see from the increasing numbers that this is quite serious, and that it is impacting all different races, ethnicities, ages, genders, folks from zip codes, far and wide, as well as from income brackets. And so we have got to take this seriously. I want to touch briefly on what's happening with the Los Angeles Unified School District, as well as with the courts. As many of you know, and especially those of you who are parents or who are grandparents who have kids in LA Unified, the school district campuses will remain closed until at least May 1st. The superintendent will be making another announcement, I believe, Monday, with an update. LA Unified's response to COVID-19 is focused on 3 objectives. One is to maintain the continuity of learning. The second is to support students and families. And the third is to make sure that its workforce, 75,000 plus employees, that there is stability with them. So as it relates to the continuity of learning, earlier this week, Superintendent Ziegler announced an emergency agreement with Verizon to provide free internet to students whose families cannot afford internet access. This is an extension of an already in place contract. The superintendent also said that LA Unified will be providing training, beginning with teachers, about how to use the various virtual educational devices like Schoology, Zoom, Google, Meetup, etc., to help them connect with students. I might need to get into that training too. LA Unified, in coordination with PBS, has provided learning plans and educational programming from March 30th through April 30th. We know that approximately 100,000 people in the LA region are watching PBS learning shows each day. LA Unified has 64, up from 64 grab-and-go meal locations to provide meals to students and adults in the family, so students and adults who normally receive meals at schools. These sites are operating from 7 to 11, Monday through Friday. There are a number of grab-and-go centers in the 54th and in the 30th districts. The closest one, or the one that is called, there's also Dorsey. And once again, you can drive through or walk up, and they will give you breakfast and lunch for all students and adults in the family. The locations of each of these sites can be found on my Assembly website under state and local resources and services. The grab-and-go locations are run with support from LA Unified School District employees and also the Red Cross. If you are interested in volunteering, if it is safe for you to do so, you can go to the website, to Red Cross's website, to sign sign up, they do screen you. Last Friday, we served almost 250,000 meals across the entire LA Unified School District map. A charitable fund has been established to provide meals and supplies for students and their families. Contributions are tax deductible and can be made at lastudentsmostinneed.org. I believe one group donated $250,000 into this fund. We know that LA Unified will continue to pay and provide health benefits for employees through the duration of the school closure. Families, you can call 213-443-1300 if you have direct questions, or you can visit their website. I briefly want to just mention what's happening with the court. We know that various measures are being enacted to protect our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated. All new inmates who are being brought into the system are being quarantined for 2 weeks. All rehab programs, conjugal visits, and other programs that allow for interaction have been canceled during this time. Parole hearing eligibility has also been postponed. We know that prisons are attempting to isolate, test, and quarantine as quickly as possible to stop potential spread. There have been a few cases that have tested positive in some prisons across the state. In LA County, home to the largest jail system in the country, more than 2,000 people have already been released. As of this morning, the population was 14,646, down from the usual, about 17,000. Mm-hmm. In regard to our court system, on Monday, the California Chief Justice issued a statewide order suspending all jury trials for the next 60 days to limit physical courtroom presence to only employees vital to the operations, mostly judges, commissioners, and court staff. You know that bail review hearings will be a priority matter for the court for the next 60 days. All criminal, civil, and non-jury trials are suspended for the time being. This information and additional information can also be found on my website. We know that several banks and other financial institutions have agreed to provide mortgage relief to California homeowners. We know that with regards to the DMV, the deadline to establish a California Real ID has been extended one additional year to October 2021. The DMV has stopped all online on-site driving tests, and they are not accepting any walk-in appointments. We know that the filing and payment deadlines for state income tax and federal has been extended to July 15th, 2020. And I think I'll stop there because I feel like I've been talking quite a bit.
No, that's good. And we've got to get our technology tighter because I didn't realize that my Facebook Live, people couldn't hear you, Assembly Member, but I figured it out, unplugged my ears and held the phone up to Facebook Live. You may have to do the same with me on your Facebook Live to hold the phone up so your people can hear me as I'm talking. Assembly Member, we're going to work it out on behalf of our constituents, one way or another.
We're going to work it out.
We're going to work it out. So we thank you all for submitting your questions. We've got a couple that I'll go through. The Assembly Member is going to go through a few because I'm monitoring our time because it ends promptly at 8 o'clock. As I said earlier, thank you all who emailed your questions into my office. We will have staff respond to each one of those within the next few days. So we appreciate you. The first question we got talks about price gouging, a major concern. Who do you contact about price gouging, and can you report them anonymously? All reports of price gouging should be reported to our Attorney General, Xavier Becerra. Our AG, along with 32 other states' attorney generals, are calling in all 5 major online marketplaces to take additional steps to stop price gouging related to COVID-19. So you visit his website to report price gouging. I'm not sure if it's anonymous, but I'm going to give you the website address. So if you have a concern, this is where you report it. It's www.oag, as in Office of Attorney General, oag.ca.gov/report. second question has to do with medical supplies. This is a serious issue. Assembly member, if at any point you want to weigh in and you have additional responses, please feel free to do so. So the question is, what measures is the state government taking to secure needed medical supplies? What are the obstacles to obtaining the required equipment, and what can average citizens do to help? So Governor Newsom said in one of his press conferences that California just got an additional 100 million N95 masks, one of the most efficient facial masks at filtering out air particles. We just procured those. He said we did that competing against other states, other nations, and likely the United States itself. California started with just over 7,500 ventilators and has been working with private industries to get more, obtaining more than 1,000 from the Tesla founder, Elon Musk, as well as refurbishing over 500 that the state already had in storage. The governor said that LA County has asked for and received about 4,000 from the Strategic National Stockpile this week. The Strategic National Stockpile is really kind of the clearinghouse for all medical supplies for the entire country. I know that the Assembly member has been working with LA County Community Clinic Association. We've been talking to Planned Parenthood Los Angeles, all of whom are going through the normal process where you send in your request to the county sends in the request to the national stockpile, the Strategic National Stockpile, and then they're dispersed. Well, clearly, the Strategic National Stockpile is overwhelmed by requests coming from all over the country. And so I am proud that a number of manufacturers right in the 30th Senate District have stepped up and are making face masks and are doing all that they can to make sure that Angelenos have the resources we need if indeed we find ourselves falling victim to COVID-19 and even worse, having to be hospitalized. I think in addition to the equipment is recognizing what we're doing to make sure that there are enough hospital beds available. And so the governor is going to continue to speak. We've heard the mayor speak recently as we look at projections of the number of Californians who will likely succumb to COVID-19 and how many will need to be hospitalized and how we've got to expand our bed space capacity. I mentioned St. Vincent's Hospital. I know that there are a number of hospitals that are doing all that they can to triage, to make sure that people who are coming into ER are being triaged and sequestered in other areas. And so this is top of the mind for the governor. He is putting down state resources to expand our hospital bed capacity as quickly as possible. Assembly member, anything to add?
No, but I do want to add that the other thing that the governor is thinking about is making sure that those who are on the front lines, specifically the healthcare workers, also have the kinds of protection that they need in order to do their work. You know that the Navy ship Mercy is now here. We know that the governor will be visiting that tomorrow. And we know that with the appropriation that we approved 2 Mondays ago, which I know you talked about at the beginning of this, we've given him over, $1 billion to make sure that the state can procure the beds, the facilities, and the supplies that we need. But we are moving as fast as we can, and we are trying to move as fast as this pandemic is moving as well.
I agree with you. So again, yes, with the naval ship Mercy, it's 1,000 beds. I think with the licensing and bringing the 2 hospitals that he's engaged in short-term leases with, the hospital in Daly City and St. Vincent's, if I remember correctly, that may be another 600 or 700 beds altogether. And again, we very likely as a state could see what's happening in other states when some of our major kind of public facilities will become emergency locations where additional health care triage will take place. The third question we received, again, is about EDD, and I talked a little bit about that earlier. Does California and Senate District 30 area have the capacity to respond to unemployment claims? How quickly can recently COVID-19 unemployed Californians expect unemployment claim payments to meet their basic needs. This is an important question, particularly as it relates to Senate District 30 and Assembly District 54, because we know we had a closure. We lost an EDD office right in the heart of our district as a result of a battle over who actually owns the property. And so EDD was evicted from that building. They're working very hard going through the court system to come back. In the meantime, online applications and phoning in is the best way to expedite your application. I said, I think I shared earlier, but this is a data point worth mentioning again. 1 million Californians have filed for unemployment just this month. Again, my staff recently participated in the webinar where they provided a couple of pieces of information. The Department of Industrial Relations, if a person was laid off and their last paycheck is delayed for 10 days, you can file with the Department of Industrial Relations claim. An employee whose employer also allows paid family leave can use up to 6 months paid family leave to care for themselves and a family member. And you can use paid family leave due to your children's schools being closed. That's an important thing to know. Starting tomorrow, filers will be able to choose COVID-19 impact on their EDD claim. Generally, people should receive a check within 3 weeks of application, but they're working very hard to expedite that timeline, and you will receive 2 weeks worth of checks in your first payment. That's the information that we got directly from EDD. Assembly member, you want to take the next two questions?
Sure. And the next question says, my understanding is that 80% of people infected by the virus suffer only minor symptoms, and that the disease mostly kills the elderly, 70 plus in age, or those with pre-existing health conditions. Is that accurate? So the answer is the percentage is a bit high, but according to the CDC, the most vulnerable populations are 65 and older and medically fragile. In order to protect these populations, the shelter in place is very important. It will also help to flatten the curve so that our hospitals are not overwhelmed. But what we also know is that the largest group of folks who are testing positive and who are testing positive for the coronavirus are in the 18 to 47 age bracket. Mm-hmm. And so, as I stated in the beginning, it would be wrong and faulty for folks to think, I'm incredibly healthy, or I'm not over 65, so I can go out and I don't have to practice social distancing and I can act like nothing is happening. That is not true. We know that young people are carriers, and we know that it is also impacting those that don't have pre-existing conditions. We also know that no one is walking around the street with a tag on their chest that says, hi, I have a pre-existing condition, so stay away from me. That is why it is incredibly important to practice social distancing, to self-quarantine, and to make sure that you are not coming in contact with those in your family or those who are friends of yours who are in a medically fragile population or are 65 and older. The next question says, which state or local government body is responsible for and has the authority to implement a rent holiday for Los Angeles, California residents who can't make their rent payments? What measures will be in place by April 1st? The answer is this has to be taken at a local level. When asked about a potential statewide moratorium on evictions for renters, Newsom, the governor, has said that the state reserves the right to look at measures if action is not taken at a local level. There is information on my website for LA County that lists what the county is doing to protect renters. We've also sent a letter to Congresswoman Waters requesting a number of things as a result of this pandemic, including banning evictions, foreclosures, and repossessions, requesting $5 billion in emergency homeless assistance, suspending consumer and small business credit payments, suspending negative consumer credit reporting, prohibiting debt collection. We know that the governor has been tracking this profusely, which is one of the reasons why he entered into a deal with four of the largest banks across the nation to ask for a delay in mortgage payments. And we are also asking that folks suspend rental and utility payments for assisted renters. So this is something, once again, that many counties have the opportunity to put in place. And this is also something that legislators are tracking and that the governor is tracking as well. Ultimately, we know that people are suffering economically because of the pandemic, and we also know that no one should be taking advantage of those families and those folks who cannot afford to pay rent. This is on par with price gouging. And so it is something that we are all watching and monitoring very closely.
Assembly member, I'm going through some of the list of other questions we got. One question was with regard to the payment of taxes, and the person says they're clear that federal taxes have been delayed until I think it's July, but they're concerned that the state taxes have not been delayed as well. And it's my understanding both state and federal taxes have been delayed until July. Is that your understanding?
That is correct. So
Yeah.
federal taxes have been delayed until July of 15, 2020. State taxes have been delayed until July 15, 2020. State payroll taxes, you can ask for a 60-day extension if you are having trouble paying your state payroll taxes. And so you have to go through the process of proving that you've been impacted by COVID. So you can ask for a 60-day extension for the state payroll tax. The only taxes that have not been extended are property tax. But once again, for LA County, on the assessor's page, you can ask for an extension because you've been impacted by COVID. So state payroll taxes and property taxes, there are opportunities for you to ask for an extension. For state and federal income taxes, those have been extended until July 15, 2020.
Thank you. Lots of questions about rent. I just got a question on Facebook Live about we understand that there have been protections in place for rent payers, but what about mortgage holders? And if you own rental property, for example, and if we've got the protections in place that people can't be evicted, and so what about mortgage holders? And so the governor announced yesterday he's negotiated a deal with 3 or 4 banks. I remember he repeatedly stated that B of A was not one of them, but the other large banks, help me, Ms. Kamlang, I remember it was U.S. Bank, I believe it was Wells Fargo, the largest four. J.P. Morgan. They are the largest banks and typically the largest mortgage holders, where they've also agreed for a 90-day grace period, if you will, where you won't get a ding on your credit rating and no late fees will be assessed. But again, just like the rent, I think it's important for people to understand this isn't a pass on your rent. We're simply saying that during this crisis period, people can't be evicted, but it doesn't mean that you will not owe that back rent. Just like with the mortgage, it doesn't mean that you won't owe that back mortgage. It's just attempting to give you a brief reprieve during this period while so many are struggling with their employment. We've got a number of legislators who've joined me on Facebook Live. Perhaps you too. Welcome to my colleagues from the State Assembly and the Senate. Thank you for joining us. A couple of other questions, Assembly member. Go ahead.
If I may,
Please.
I wanted to add, since the answer that you gave on the mortgages, we know that there are roughly 4,000 banks across the United States. As you mentioned, this is a deal that the governor made with 4 of the largest banks. It is for residential mortgages only, and it is an opt-in. So you are not automatically granted this. It is an opt-in. You will have to show proof of impact. You will have to work with your bank. But this is not an automatic reprieve. So we don't want folks thinking, I can hold off on 90 days without paying my mortgage and I don't have to communicate with my bank. That is not a good idea.
Exactly. A series of questions, and I appreciate it because I think we're all experiencing a heightened sense of community. A number of people who are expressing gratitude for the frontline people who are continuing to go to work, healthcare providers, mail carriers, public transportation, the people who are working in the grocer and the banking industry, the industries that are still viable, and wanting to make sure that they have access to protective gear at all. Somebody just said, what about the folks who are driving the buses still? I've not seen them with masks and gloves. And I think all of these governmental agencies understand the importance of maintaining the health of their employee base. And as these additional resources are coming into Los Angeles County, we'll begin to see more and more people have access. I think the harsh reality is watching Mayor Garcetti's press conference yesterday was very sobering. And I think he told the truth as we know it today, that this sheltering in place, that being safe at home is going to extend beyond, I think, what any of us initially thought. In my humble opinion, it will certainly extend beyond what the president declared as, the Easter Sunday goal of being able to reopen commerce across this country. And so, again, it's going to be important that the workforce that we all need continues to be protected, that we have to figure out and make sure that we have child care available to those people who are having to go to work in their effort to keep our society rolling. Can you all hear the 19-year-old banging dishes in the kitchen? Could you keep it down in there, please? And so those are some of the additional questions we've had. Senate Assembly Member, do you have any additional questions you see that have come through you?
Yes, I see one that says everything we've seen for small business assistance is with 10 employees. Is there anything being done for small businesses with less than 10 employees or for micro businesses? This information is also on the website. We know that small businesses employ over 7.1 million people across the state. It comprises of about 63% of the folks who are working. As I mentioned, the state and federal income tax has been extended until July 15, 2020. There are current programs that allow small and micro businesses to access new capital. Those are now being leveraged into disaster relief loans for small businesses. That information is on my website as well, and so please go to my website for that information, but that will hopefully answer the questions that you have around support for micro businesses.
Assembly Member, would you please share your website?
Excuse me?
Would you please share your website?
Yes. It's not the easiest.
No. Yes. Let me share mine while you're looking yours up. Mine is www.asmdc.org. So it's www.a54.asmdc.org. And this will have information on the direct loans that are available for small businesses who are impacted by COVID. Once again, we are leveraging the new capital through a number of programs at the federal and the state level into disaster support programs for small businesses. And my website as well, SD as in Senate District, sd30.ca.gov. I often get that wrong, so I'm sure staff will put it up on Facebook Live or send me a text to tell me if I've gotten that wrong. I believe it's sd30.ca.gov. A number of questions have come up on Facebook Live asking about meals for seniors, the 65 and older group, who we are asking to be safe at home. Many of whom have taken advantage of our wonderful adult day centers and senior centers and go and have lunch and can't do that anymore. And so if you go to my website as well, there are a number of community-based resources that are providing delivered meals to seniors. proud that our city councilman from the CD8, Marquise Harris Dawson, is partnered with a number of restaurants in CD8, Soul, South LA Cafe, Earl's, and others who are making meals, contracting with local businesses, small and micro businesses, and delivering meals. So if you go to the councilman's website, you come to our website, you'll be able to see some of those meal delivery. Also, on my Facebook and on our website, we partnered with a community partner who is doing the yeoman's job of making sure and checking which grocery stores are open and which stores are providing unique hours for seniors and the disabled. And so on my website, you'll see that updated and refreshed almost daily for grocery stores really throughout the greater Los Angeles area, so you know who opens early for seniors to allow you in. All right, Assembly member.
Allow the first hour to be open for seniors to make sure that they're able to access the supplies that are in the store.
Exactly. So we want, Assembly member, do you have any additional questions you want to cover? As I've stated, go ahead.
Thank you. A couple of questions have also come up. One was, what's happening with the elections? And we know that they have extended for 3 weeks the ballot counting that's happening. And we also know that there's going to be an extension on some of the special elections that do not impact those in the 30th or the 54th. But there are other elections that are happening. And so we will be instituting vote by mail. I think one of the special elections that this pandemic has impacted is an election that's in the Lancaster, Santa Clarita area. And the other question that came up is, what about the census? And the census is still going on. And now more than ever, we see how important it is to make sure that you are filling this information out. Because we know this happens every 10 years. We know that the information that is collected by the census is used to decide the kinds of and the amount of resources that go into communities. We know that because the federal administration has not done anything to support any workarounds with the census, that it is more important than ever that we fill this out to make sure that we continue to have the resources that our communities and our districts and our neighborhoods need. And we see in this time of a pandemic just how critical it is. I want to encourage everyone, because you can fill this out online, to go to my2020census.gov. Once again, that's my2020census.gov. Many of you all will probably have received something in the mail with a PIN, a PIN, that you can use once you go on that website to make sure that you complete it. It takes about 5 minutes. I did it. I saw on Facebook that the senator did it, and we are encouraging you all to do your civic duty and fill this out as well.
I've got a couple of questions. Are the Social Security offices still open? That's a great question. I don't know. We may have to follow up with you on that. People are asking, should we expect a change in the way we vote? As the Assembly member just said, I think this is a great opportunity for us to all make that final transition to become permanent absentee voters, quite frankly. Then you'll have the opportunity to vote at your leisure at home and get your ballots cast and mailed in very early. Anything else, Assemblywoman, before we wrap tonight up?
No.
Well,
I don't see any additional questions.
Well, we do have quite a few more that we I've committed that we will certainly split them up and make sure that we get email answers to all of those who submitted questions as a part of your RSVP to attend tonight's Teletown Hall. We want to thank you. I think I have been, my heart has been warmed as I have seen members of the community rise up to take care of each other. That's what this pandemic is going to force us to do, to find and dig deep in terms of our own humanity and take care of one another, perhaps in a way that for some and in some communities we got too far away from. And so to make sure that we're reaching out to the seniors in our community. I've seen news reports where seniors are putting, green pieces of paper or red pieces of paper in their window to make sure that their neighbors know that they need some help. All of us have relationships, are involved in organizations, and know the people who are at risk, the people who are going to need a touch in terms of being referred to a resource, a touch in terms of making sure that we help them access a resource. So many in our community don't have access. We do still live in a digital divide. And one thing that concerns me is I recognize that so many of these public resources require that you go to a website, even including EDD. And so we're going to do all that we can to make sure and applaud our corporate partners. I believe Spectrum, I believe Comcast, and others I've read are making internet packages available for the very, very low income and in some instances free. So we've got to come together to make sure that all of our friends and family and neighbors and brothers and sisters know that we've got them, that we're all only going to get through this if we stay safe at home, we wash our hands, and we respect each other by making sure that we do our social distancing so we can protect each other from this virus that is not going to take us out. Assembly member, any final thoughts?
Yes, I want to say that I too have been humbled on so many levels that it is indeed scary. You think about this when you watch movies, but you don't think that something like this is going to happen in real life. And it is okay to have a little bit of fear from time to time, but it is also incredibly important to lean on faith and to lean on the communities in which we are a part. And we are all a part of some kind of community. And it is in this type of time that we can see how resilient we are and how strong we are when we are working together. We came up to the Capitol 2 Mondays ago, and this was the only thing that was on people's minds. And we worked really quickly to make sure that we could give the governor the kind of funding, appropriations, authority that he needed to do what he needs to do in this time of crisis. We have seen amazing coordination in this state with members of Congress and the Senate, and those of us who are in the Assembly and in the State Senate, and those at the local level. Everyone working together to make sure that we are sharing accurate, appropriate, timely, relevant information, because we are all suffering in some way. Many of us are afraid that we will be able to make rent, if we will be able to pay the mortgage, if we will have a job, if someone in our family will be safe, if someone who's on the inside will be able to get out, and what life looks like in a few months. Many of us are trying to find ways to still fellowship and go to church, because something that we were used to doing on a Saturday or a Sunday has now been closed to us. Many of us are used to some routine, like going to the park or hanging out in clusters or having playtime for our children, and now not being able to do that. And so this really affords us a different kind of opportunity to figure out how to gather while practicing social distancing. How to pray to the God of our choice in a way that keeps us healthy and safe. How to check in on our loved ones and our family members in a way that keeps us all safe. And so I think it's important that we continue to ask questions and find the right answers and lean on our local and state and federal elected officials to make sure that we are giving you the kinds of information that you need. And ultimately to think about, our own role as people on this planet.
Wrap it up, Assembly member.
And figure out what this moment means for us. And I believe that we will come through this. And I hope that coming through this, we will have different kinds of conversations around climate change and how to protect this
Wrap it up, Assembly Member.
Helping the least all the time.
The Assembly Member was preaching tonight. Did you hear that? Mother Earth is mad at us and we got to get it together. Thank you, Assembly Member. It was wonderful partnering with you on this. I think hopefully through our example, our shared constituents can see that this is about joining arms, coming together to bring resources back to our community. I want to encourage all of you to make sure that you follow us on our websites. This is my third teletown hall today. I was on earlier with Cal Nonprofit and Justice for Los Angeles. Organizations are coming together, trying to bring together resources to make sure that everybody has the resources they need to survive. We've been asked if we'll do additional town halls. We will. I'm hosting 2 next week, one in Spanish, one in Korean. I know the Assembly Member will very likely do the same. Again, the additional questions that were posed to us via email through the RSVP will be responded to by our staffs in the next couple of days via email. Thank you very much for your participation. We hope that you'll join us again. Assembly Member Kamlager, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Senator, and thank you all for joining. We too will be hosting more of these. We will be doing one on small business, and we will be doing one on unemployment.
Excellent. All right. Good night, everybody. Be safe. Wash your hands.
Ladies and gentlemen on the phone lines, that does conclude our conference for today. Thank you for your participation and for using the AT&T conferencing services. Speakers, please hold for transfer.
All right, Facebook Live, thank you so much for being willing to stick with us for an hour. People are asking questions. Yes, he's actually cooking dinner. Isn't that great? This is being safe at home and sharing responsibility, and he's helping his mama out. Thank you, Facebook Live, for tuning in, and we'll see you again.